So first of all, I'm going to be providing an update on what's new in lentil and faba bean varieties. Before I start, I want to acknowledge the work done by Bert Vandenberg in developing these varieties along with the CDC Pulse crew. So faba bean acres in Saskatchewan have been increasing over the last 3 years, with over 52,000 insured acres in 2020. This is probably closer to about 65,000 acres, since only about 75% are listed or are insured. So the majority of these acres are ceded to snowbird at 83% of the acres. Are ceded to snowbird has 83% of the acres, and 4% are ceded to CDC snowdrop, and then a small number ceded to, or 4% are ceded to FB9-4. So the acres have been increasing a little bit every year. So this again shows the varieties and how snowbird has increased year upon year up until 2019, while there's been subsequent drops in CDC snowdrop and FB9. This table shows the long-term means as shown in the varieties of grain crops for 2021. So in the tannin types, the variety Vertigo is showing particularly good yield at 105% of the Czech Fabel, and Fabel yields similar to snowbird. In the white flower types, 219-16 is looking pretty good here at 102% of snowbird. We also see DL Tesoro, which yields fairly high too compared to the snowbird Czech. However, this is a later variety and matures about 6 days later than snowbird. Now, it is anticipated that these varieties will slowly be phased out in favor of low visine convisine varieties. Currently, varieties with this trait include Fabel in the colored flower normal tannin types, and DL Rico for the white flower types. DL Rico is also fairly late, and based on 4 years of data, it's not particularly high yielding. However, new genetics are in development, so you can expect improved varieties over the next few years that carry this trait. So a little bit more on the low visine convisine trait. So the industry is switching over to low visine convisine, and all new varieties going forward will have this trait. The Prairie Grain Development Committee, PGDC, has made the decision that all new varieties entered into variety trials must carry this trait. Now, the gene responsible for low visine convisine reduces the level of these anti-nutritional compounds by 99%. Now, this has the potential to expand domestic faba bean markets. Faba bean has good potential for protein extraction for food ingredients. The main concern for faba bean is the anti-nutritional compounds, as these can cause anemia in a small percentage of the human population. So by reducing convisine and visine, the protein and flours can safely be used in food products. Now, processors have expressed interest and are anticipated to be using faba beans for fractionation. Faba bean has higher protein than peas and does not have the flavor issues associated with other pulse proteins. So there's huge potential here. There are challenges, however, because faba bean is partly outcrossing and through pollination by bees. Therefore, distance of up to 2 kilometers or more are recommended to avoid contamination with high visine types. Now, there are some new varieties in the works that in the low visine that are low visine convisine. In the white flowered zero tannin faba bean varieties, there are 3 listed here that are on the horizon for release through SPG's variety release program. So this will be a couple years away or so before we have seed, but hopefully with more testing, one of these will show to be a really good candidate. So these include the potentially high yielding line 1089, as you can see circled in red, where it has yielded in 2 years. This is a head-to-head summary from the 2019 and 2020 regional variety trial, over 18 sites in total. It was 106% of snowbird. Again, we need a few more years or a year or two of data, but this is looking promising. Maturity is not bad. It is 2 days later than snowbird, so it's not too bad. Some of the other varieties are quite a bit later. It is a small seeded type, as are all three of these candidate varieties from CDC, with seed size at approximately 75 to 80% of the snowbird seed. For the colored flower tannin types, there are also new faba bean varieties for release through our program on the horizon. There are 2 of them listed here as potential candidates in the next year or two. And both of these are higher yielding than Fabel. Again, this is only based on 2 years, but it's head-to-head data from 2019 and 20. So they were grown in the same year. And these lines mature similar or slightly earlier than Fabel and also have similar seed weight as Fabel, around 500 grams per 1,000 seeds. So hopefully one of these 2 will come out as a winner that we can release down the road. Okay, I'm going to switch now to lentils. So this graph just shows the relative number of acres seeded to the main lentil market classes. This isn't over Western Canada. As you can see, it really hasn't changed that much, the relative amount of greens to reds in the last 5 years. There were some fluctuations in 2018 with increased acres of green lentils versus the red lentils. However, a more typical distribution by market class was reestablished in 2020. And this is showing by variety. And you can see that the main varieties here are Green Star and Greenland, followed by Empower and then Improve. So these 2 lentils here still capture the majority of the green lentil acres. The percentage of acres seeded to CDC Green Star has been increasing every year from 2016 to 2018, and is still the leading variety in terms of acres. The IMI-tolerant CDC Empower, released in 2009, is now on the decline. A new variety released in 2018, CDC Lima, is just starting to capture acres, as there's just recently been certified seed available, but it is expected to do well. And based on the crop insurance on-farm yield data, CDC Lima was the highest yielding. Now that's only from 4,400 acres that were in production, but it's a good sign of what's to come. So this now shows the data for 2020. And again, here Green Star captured 45% of the large green lentil acres, with all the other varieties showing some decrease again. Now to red lentils. In small red, CDC Maxim continues to dominate, although the percentage of acres is steadily declining each year. So this went from a high of 70% in 2017 to now it's around 45% of the acres. Both of the Clearfield varieties, CDC Proclaim and CDC Impulse, are gaining acres each year, and now both of them capture approximately 20% each of the red lentil acres. Interest in CDC Red Moon is increasing slightly, and as more growers seem to be willing to forego herbicide tolerance in favor of yield potential, the CDC Red Moon is a really high yielding variety. So what's new for 2021? Well, we have a new large green lentil called CDC Grim. This is a Clearfield variety, and its main benefit is improved resistance to anthracnose. It is rated moderately resistant, or MR, which is the best rating for a lentil variety in this market class. And in conversation with Bert Vandenberg, he also noted that CDC Grim was able to withstand a severe anthracnose infestation in one of their sites while in testing better than the other lines in the field. So that's a pretty good indication of the potential there. This is showing 4 years or 23 site years of head-to-head data in the 2017 to 2020 regional variety trial. So you can see here that CDC Grim at the bottom here does not show a yield increase over CDC Lima. It yields a little bit lower, although it is higher yielding than CDC Empower. It also yields lower than Green Star. However, we decided to release this variety due to the improved resistance to anthracnose. So that was the main reason for that. Another new variety is a small green lentil, CDC Jiminy. And this is an exciting new release for the small green lentil market class. It's a very high yielding clear field variety. This one is higher yielding than both the current IMI-tolerant variety CDC Invincible, but also higher yielding than the non-IMI variety CDC Kermit, which has been the highest yielding small green lentil to date. Seed diameter and thickness are both higher than that of CDC Invincible, making CDC Jiminy more suitable for lentil dehulling. So for agronomic performance, this is 2 years or 11 site years of head-to-head comparison in the 2019 and 2020 regional variety trial. And here it yielded, in this data set, it yielded 113% of the check in the brown and dark brown soil zones and 89% in the black and dark gray soil zones as compared to CDC Maxim. So this represents about a 4% yield increase over CDC Kermit in the brown and dark brown soil zones. So I think this is quite an exciting variety. Seed coat color, cotyledon color, flowering time, maturity, and plant height are similar to CDC Invincible. And disease resistance is also similar to CDC Invincible. And this is showing the data from the long-term means as they are presented in the 2021 variety of grain crops. And in this data here, CDC Jiminy was tested for 5 years versus Kermit that was tested for 11 years. And here we see a 3 to 5% increase or higher yield than CDC Kermit. Here it's in the brown and dark brown soil zones, it's 3% and 5% in the black and gray soil zones. So that is a very quick summary of what's new in lentil and faba bean, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Sure, Laurie. There's a couple of questions here. The first one is, how far away are those 2 promising faba bean varieties from launch or tender? Is it 3 years or possibly more?
I'm hoping, I'm not sure exactly what the seed quantities are of those, so I'm hoping that maybe 2 years, because we certainly are going to go for, you know, starting yield increase, but I'm just not sure how much pre-breeder seed there is, so that'll determine exactly when we can produce breeder seed and how fast and how much. So I would look at 2 years as the earliest.
Okay. And then did you have any thoughts on market development for 2019-16?
Well, I think it'll continue as is for a while. There's probably going to be a time, you know, a few years where there's going to be concurrent production of low visine, convisine, and the high visine types. But we can expect if you know, if we see the uptake by processors of low visine, convisine, and that market's starting to grow, I think the demand is going to switch production fairly quickly then. So that's going to be one of the big drivers. And also the other big driver will be if we can get good varieties with good yield and good seed quality of the low visine, convisine types, then there's going to be a lot of incentive there to switch over as well. There has been discussion at a higher level of the industry, at the industry level, of the potential of deregistration at some time, but that, first of all, that's only in discussion, and that would be a long ways down the road if that were to happen. So I wouldn't be too concerned there at this point.
Thanks, Laurie. Those were all the questions.
Great. Thanks, everyone.